Hey investors, I'm glad you could join us today. And today we're talking about transit here in the GTHA. We're talking about how we're going to connect these cities with the number of people growing exponentially. In fact, last week we did a video on immigration talking about how our population would grow to 531,000 people is what we saw in a 1 year period. It was the most population growth we in a single year. And we're expecting to see a doubling of the population over the next 50 years. But of course, our systems are not built for this many people to move from point A to point B. And so I wanted to discuss today what the big plans are, what we have coming down the pipes to improve our transit here in the GTA, and to allow you guys to have a bit of an insight on where you want to be investing your money. Now, some of these projects have already started and you might be seeing them popping up around you, but there's other ones that are coming down the pipes. And so I want to highlight the big ones because there's a ton of money being thrown at infrastructure, and that is in many ways one of the best ways to capture a future growth is to see what is the transit going to look like in that area, what is the walk score or ability to access amenities, and transit allows for that in just a very powerful way, in a way that we should be paying attention to as investors that have properties across the GTA. So the question is we of course have gridlocks, we've got transit being jammed. How is it that we're going to move millions of people efficiently and effectively across the region that was definitely built for a significantly smaller population? And you don't have to go to many of these major hubs, Union or Yonge and Eglinton, to just see how tight things are and how difficult it is to get a spot and things just move. There's so much activity. And it's just over capacity. We're not able to, if we were to keep the systems the same, we would absolutely get left behind by the growth that we're experiencing here in Toronto. And it would, if anything, it would impact that growth. People won't want to come here. So we need to be in an environment that can facilitate this and encourages future growth. And of course, it's unchanging and it's accelerating. So it's happening at an ever increasing speed. And again, I've compiled a bunch of the different investments that are being made, much of which is being done by the province. And to start us off, I want to talk about MetroLinx. For any of you who don't understand the history of MetroLinx, on their website, this is how they define themselves. The province of Ontario created MetroLinx as a new regional transportation agency in 2006. MetroLinx was tasked to work with federal, provincial, and municipal partners, the private sector, and other stakeholders to create an integrated transportation system that would support a higher quality of life, a more prosperous economy, and a healthier environment. So back in 2006, it was very obvious that there was this need to integrate all of these systems that are all over the place and put them into a single investment and allow all of these stakeholders to put their funds together and have something beautiful and a productive transit system. And last year, over the past year, we've seen an investment by MetroLinx of about $4 billion. This year, it's expected to go up to $4.5 billion. And so there is that growth that's happening. And they're creating arteries across the GTHA and listening to top officials at MetroLinx. The funny thing is they don't even seem to think it's an adequate enough. It's not even enough in their eyes of an investment in order to support the projected growth we're seeing. I mentioned in our last week's podcast that for me personally, my expectation was that our population would grow about 350,000 people here in Canada, but that number outshot 500,000. So our growth is definitely surprising people, and it's happening at a very quick rate. And they, having listened to interviews with them, even their top senior officials, they don't seem convinced it's enough. So there's definitely a need for more investment, and taking away from these projects won't be good. There's been challenges, of course, across these projects. I've even seen in the news lately, but that doesn't mean we halt these developments. It means we add to them. There's going to be an ever more increasing need for improved and more efficient growth in the transit. This year, we've seen a 35% growth in GO services, and they want to maintain that rate. Now, there is a massive GO expansion program that's happening. I'm going to give you the highlights of who's getting the money, but the GO service today moves 18 million people per year, but they want by 2046, so 26 years from now, that to go from 18 million to 200 million people. There are big plans for GO service, expanding our current systems, and improving them, of course. And so the money currently that's being invested in the Go expansions are happening on these lines: the Lakeshore West line, Lakeshore East line, Milton line, Stouffville line, Richmond Hill, Kitchener, Barrie. There's a Niagara extension and a Bowmanville extension, which is great for people that live in Bowmanville. It's fantastic. Same with Niagara. So these areas are going to experience the majority of the currently dedicated investments in Go service. And so if you're along these lines, thumbs up to you. There's a great opportunity there as well. So now moving outside of the Go, we move into rapid transit. And there are 6 major investments happening in rapid transit, and many of these projects seem to be done or nearing completion. So just to name what they are, the first one is the Hurontario LRT that extends from Brampton to Mississauga. There's a Finch West LRT that runs from Humber College all the way to Young University line. Eglinton Crosstown LRT is an east and west line that runs more than 10 kilometers from Kiel to Laird. Then it at a surface from Kennedy Station. So it actually will go underground and above ground. And that is set to be completed by 2022. There's a Mississauga Transitway. If any of you guys are driving along the 403, you'll see from Winston Churchill to Renforth. That kind of gets that east-west. There's Viva Rapid Ways, which is expected to be completed in 2020, and it goes across the York region. So awesome news for York region, and hopefully all of these delays that we've seen for traffic will improve once that's done. Union Pearson Express, any of you have taken the up, is it's pretty cool. I remember when it was first completed, there was that issue with pricing because it didn't make financial sense to do it, but they'd since brought the price down, and we were able to ride the Up Express, and it was pretty cool. Little vehicle that takes you from Union Station to the airport. Okay, so that's our Go station, that's our LRT. What exactly are the big plans for subways? Now, there was a huge, in 2019, there was a provincial budget made where they dedicated a combined total of $28.5 billion. The province willing to give $11.2 billion. I love when they do that, when it's like, we want this $28 billion project, but we're going to cover $11 billion, and you guys better cover the rest. I love it. But hopefully they do, and it seems to be a go. And now these projects, just so you know, are floating anywhere from 2029 to 2031, kind of as a completion time frame. So another 10 years out. But they are quite significant. They're quite a significant investment, and of course, we need it in the downtown core. So there's the LRT Eglinton Crosstown West Extension, which goes from Mount Douglas LRT Station to Renforth and will be mostly underground. That one's going to be completed in 2030. There's an Ontario line, which I find really cool. That's a 16-kilometer route. It's going to go from east to west, but also north to south, and it connects you to Ontario Place all the way to Ontario Science Center. Now, I think that's kind of a unique one because that will open up a whole bunch of new markets somewhere in between there. And they're actually expecting, this is a fun fact, for the Ontario line, a train every 90 seconds. Every 90 seconds. So like you're running, you miss the train, and then you look down and, oh, we're good. There's another one coming. I love that. I love the speed that they're trying to improve the efficiencies of these two. Pretty cool. And then Yonge North Subway Extension. It's almost 7.5 kilometers from Finch Station into Richmond Hill, and helping travel from North York to Toronto. There's and the final one is the Scarborough Subway Extension, which is an 8 kilometers, and it's going to run from Kennedy Station to Shepherd Avenue and McCowan Road, and that one's expected in 2029. So that would help, of course, on the east end as well in Scarborough. So there's some really cool stuff that's happening. And a few other side ones that aren't specific extensions or lines, but things that are definitely matter. For those of you who are in Barrie, you're about to experience a really cool thing called the Davenport Diamond Grade Separation Project. So what that is they found that where the CP rail tracks meet the Barrie GO tracks is one of the busiest train intersections in all of North America. So the game plan here is to separate the two, and they're going to be, I don't have it here, but they're going to add parks, and there's going to be a lot of really cool development that happen around that, and that will totally increase the efficiency of the GO to Barrie. And so very exciting stuff for people that are north. But also they're planning on improving the wayfinding systems. Now, each of these different modes of transit have their own wayfinding program set up. And so what they want is they want to be able to streamline all of those. So they want you to be able to do things like this. You can ask a basic question like, am I at the right bus stop? Or where do I pay for my fare? Where do I get the train? And they want to be able to have these all be integrated. And so that'll be pretty cool. And I think that in many other cities and in big cities across the world, we see that style of waypointing systems and or wayfinding systems. And so we need something like that, of course, especially with a program like MetroLinx is perfectly situated to create that. And also I think, and that's why I wanted to highlight that, I think that's a really cool initiative, and it's paying off, and it will continue to pay off as they continue to integrate and expand and develop these transit systems that even they don't think are sufficient. And I think that's the key here is we need that investment to continue. And so I don't think you're going to see for people we have seen, I guess on a side note, we have seen transit lines get pulled back on a larger scale connecting major cities to major cities. But within the GTA, I don't expect, unless there be for political reasons, there to be any pullback on these expansions. But as mentioned, of course, there's going to be inefficiencies in some of the people that they've hired to do the projects. We've seen challenges like that, but I would be very encouraged by having one of these things planned in my area in the GTA. And I would even say we will in the next 5 to 10 years need more, and you can expect to see even more. So why am I so passionate about transit in the GTA? I don't just preach this as an opportunity for you to place your investment in these areas. I've actually used it. I'll give you an example. We bought a property a few years back in Oshawa, which is why I'm so passionate about the Bowmanville thing. I think that's really cool. But in Oshawa, they were developing the Oshawa Center, which is now done and it's old news. But at the time, they were investing $230 million in this giant expansion. And we kind of knew this was coming, and Sandra actually worked at Ivanhoe Cambridge, who owns the Oshawa Center. So we could see this coming. It wasn't hidden information. It was public information. They were making this giant investment. And so we saw that as an opportunity in the city of Oshawa, and we actually got in. And that during that time, we were over the course of a single year while this was opening, this new expansion, we saw a net increase after tax of over $100,000. So that area just boomed when that expansion happened. And now this is of course not transit, but this was infrastructure, and these developments can create a massive opportunity in new markets or in existing markets with further growth. It can create jobs, it can create so many amazing things for an economy. And so we've leveraged it. We didn't just say it, we're practicing what we preach. And so I want you guys to take these transit things and other infrastructure projects that are coming down the pipes that you are aware of, maybe things that you're seeing going on. This is how we're able to, as investors, create a framework for where we want to invest and put our money, and be convinced in our own minds as we're entering a market that there is an opportunity for growth, not just entering blindly, but being educated and understanding what's happening in a marketplace before we put our hard-earned money into it. That's all I have for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Make sure you follow us and subscribe, and we're going to continue to put out fantastic podcasts and video content. We'll see you next time. Take care. Keep it real.